Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to start talking seeds. What will we be growing next year? Let's talk about it. I am going to go through my seeds with you today to talk about the seeds that are best for my growing zone, which is Southwest Ohio Growing Zone 6A. So our first frost date is around April 25th. But usually you never know around here, so it could be much later. And so I will share with you the seeds that I plan to grow this season. For the tomatoes, there are 3 types of tomatoes that I grow. Actually, let's say 4 types. So we have indeterminate, which is more like a vining tomato. They grow all season long. And let's start with those. For the indeterminate tomatoes, I will be growing paste tomatoes as well as big slicing tomatoes. I'll be growing the Gibberty from M.I. Gardner. I've never tried it before, but hopefully it'll turn out really well. I'll also be growing the Fertility, I guess is how you say it, also from M.I. Gardner, and it should be a huge paste tomato. I'll be growing the Italian heirloom. This is from Fruition Seeds, and it did really, really well last year. They gave me huge paste tomatoes. I'm growing from Burpees, the Big Mama, which is also a huge paste tomato. And I love this one. I've been growing it for years. It always does really well in my garden. And the San Marzano, which I'll also be growing this year. I grew it last year for the first time. It did okay. I expected bigger plants, but they came in kind of small to me, but we'll give it another try this year. Outside of the paste tomatoes, I will be growing slicers as well. Slicers are usually those great big tomatoes where one slice will make a sandwich for you. That's what we'll be going through next. I'll be growing the giant Belgium pink, which is from the Rustic Garden. Bodacious from Burpees. The Abe Lincoln from M.I. Gardner. The pink Oxheart. Now, I've never tried this before, but I've seen other people grow this on YouTube, and it was a huge tomato. I want to give it a try this year. The Paul Robeson is another one I hear a lot of people talk about. This one's from Fruition Seeds. I'm going to give it a try this year as well. Costralee is the next one. I guess that's how you say it. I'm not good at reading some of these tomatoes, but it's supposed to be a nice size slicer as well. The watermelon beefsteak. I tell you, there's some interesting names on here. This is from M.I. Gardner. I'll be trying this for the first time this year. The Seeger from Fruition Seeds as well. This is a new one for me this year. We'll give it a try. The giant Cribson. This is a tomato that they had stopped selling seeds many years ago. M.I. Gardner brought this one back. It's an heirloom and it's supposed to be really good. Should have great flavor. We'll give it a try this year. Brandywise, which is my second year growing this tomato, is a huge slicer and the taste was delicious as well. Burpees Delicious, which is another one of those big 2-pound slicers, and it had great flavor, and this will be my 3rd year growing Delicious. Those are your standard red tomatoes. In addition to the standard red slicers, and you notice I'm growing a lot of tomatoes. I like a lot of variety. I like playing around with it because in the store, the only thing you can get are those red slicers. But in my garden, I get to pick and choose and try a lot of different things out. So this year, for the 2nd year in a row, I will be growing Black Beauty, which is from Fruition Seeds as well. This was the best tasting tomato in the entire garden last year. It gets to a very deep black color with just some red shoulders, but the taste was amazing. I'm telling you, this was the best seed in the garden, best tomato in the garden last year. I'll also be growing a black brandywine, and brandywine is an heirloom tomato as well. It has a very distinct taste, and they're very good, but we'll be growing the black brandywine as well. And then I got some free seeds from Baker Creek, and it's Thornburns terracotta. Have no idea anything about this seed, but we'll give it a try and we'll let you know how it does. And then the only other slicers that I have are going to be some unique colored slicers. Most of these have kind of an orange color to them, but I'll be growing the pineapple tomato. Yes, I said pineapple tomato. A lot of people say this is really good. We'll give it a try for the first time. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I'm just going to make sure you can see it. Look at that. Have no idea how to say it, but it looked interesting, so I thought I'd give it a try. Big Rainbow is another one of those. Has some very unique colors to it. You see those yellow kind of stripes. Look at that. And then Dr. Witchy's got a lot of good reviews from other growers and gardeners. I tried to grow it last year. It didn't do really well for me. I did plant them rather late compared to the other tomato plants, so we're going to give it another try this year. And that's all of the slicers for this year. In addition to slicers, there are what we call determinate tomatoes. So determinate tomatoes grow to a specific size. They usually put all their fruit on roughly at the same time, and they don't continue to grow and grow throughout the season. So I will be growing a few of those. And let me give you the names of those that I will be growing. Now, for my determinate tomatoes, I like to grow those in my GreenStalk. If you don't know what a GreenStalk is, please check out my other video about GreenStalks. But it's a tower, and it's about a 2 by 2 foot tower, and it holds about 6 plants on each level, and you can go up to 5 levels for the original GreenStalk. But we'll talk more about that later. Please check out my other video. So for my determinate tomatoes, which I grow in my GreenStalk, some of those include the bush steak from Burpees, Italian Roma, and these Italian Roma actually came from GreenStalk. I bought it from the GreenStalk website. I'll also be growing fresh salsa, which is a paste tomato, but it's a determinate paste tomato, and it gets to a particular height, and then it stops growing, which is perfect for the GreenStalk. And that's it for my determinate tomatoes. In addition to determinate tomatoes, there are what we call dwarf tomatoes. Dwarf tomatoes are tomato plants that only get to about 1 foot tall. And even though they only get to about 1 foot tall, I have had them produce all season long, like an indeterminate tomato, where they produce all season long, but they only get to about 1 foot tall. Since they only get to about 1 foot tall, I include those in my GreenStalks as well. So I will be growing what's called a Santa Claus. It's just a very, very short tomato plant with cherry style tomatoes. Red Robin, as well as a Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim I was able to get from M.I. Gardener, and I love M.I. Gardener seeds. The seeds always do very well. They germinate very well for me as well. So I talked about all the different types of tomato plants I'm going to grow except for one, and that's the standard indeterminate, what we call grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes. My favorite cherry sized tomato is the black strawberry. I was able to get these from Baker Creek. They grow amazing. The taste is amazing, And the clusters of tomatoes are amazing as well. I know I keep saying amazing, but they are that good. I love the black strawberries. I am also growing velvet red. They're very beautiful. They look like they have this frost over them. The taste was okay. It wasn't like outstanding, but just okay. But it was a very pretty tomato. I'll be growing that one again. And then, of course, the one that everyone goes to, the most sweetest cherry tomato out there, which is the Sun Gold. The Sun Gold is the most prolific. That's not right. That's not how you say that word. It grows better than any other cherry tomato out there. They grow like vines, like weeds. You can't get rid of them. They'll volunteer all over your garden the next year. But they're an orange color and they taste amazing. Sun Gold is always a staple in my household. And that does it for tomatoes. Next, we're going to talk about peppers. There are, I say, 3 types of peppers. You have the super sweet, you have mild, and then you have what I call hot, and there are many different degrees of hot from a spicy standpoint. So my peppers, I grow some in my raised beds, but I also have a whole GreenStalk tower of nothing but peppers. And so these will be the peppers that we're growing this year. I will be growing from a hot pepper standpoint. I will be growing my Greek peppers, which I love these Greek peppers. 2 types of poblanos. 2 types of poblanos, and you'll see they're from Baker Creek and from M.I. Gardner. Look at that. There's 3 different hot peppers there. From the Rustic Garden, I have the Anaheim chili peppers, the Baggio peppers, and Cayenne Long. And all of these are from the Rustic Garden, and they all did really, really well last year in my garden. I have 2 different types of jalapenos that I'll be growing. I have some from Burpees, right? And they're early style jalapeno. And then I also have some from Baker Creek. I have my serranos. I didn't grow them last year. This will be the first time growing serrano peppers. We'll be growing some habanero from Harris Seeds. And then I also received some free peppers from Baker Creek. Datil, I think is how you pronounce it, but it says that they're blazing hot. So those will be the hot peppers that I'll be growing this year. For the sweet peppers, I'll be starting out with some California Wonders. So I have California Wonder, which is your basic, bell pepper that you can buy in any grocery store. Ones from the garden taste much better though. So for the bell peppers, I have the California Wonder. I also have a Purple Beauty from the Rustic Garden. King of the North from Baker's Creek. And those are pretty much the types of bell peppers that I'll be growing. I'll also be growing an Italian pepper, the Jimmy Dardello. I've seen multiple gardeners go for this one. They said it's a delicious Italian pepper, so this will be my first year growing this one. Not a pino. I'm the only person in my house that likes spice. So in order to make some good salsa for the rest of my family, we want the jalapeno taste, but we don't want the jalapeno heat. So I'll be growing not a pino, which is from Baker Creek, which is like a jalapeno just without the heat. Shishitos. I have some what I call like a horn style sweet pepper that I like to grow. I find these to be some of the sweetest peppers that you can find. I will be growing what's called a Thunderbolt from Burpees, which are huge horn-shaped thick wall peppers. The giant Marconi, I think is how you say it. And I'll also be growing a paprika pepper. So this will be the first time for me growing this. And I'm hoping that it does really well, and then I can dehydrate it and make paprika powder out of this one. So this one's a little of an experiment for me. That's it for peppers. Next, we will talk about squash. There are two types of squash. You have what's called summer squash and you have what's called winter squash. I'll start with the winter squash. Winter squash are like pumpkins. They grow all summer long, and early in the fall before the first frost, you would pick these if they're not ready before that time. There are only two winter squash that I'll be growing this year. I will be growing what's called the Australian butter squash. I have been buying this squash from Azure Standard, and it makes the most amazing pies. I tell you, if you like sweet potato pie, use this instead of sweet potato. No one will ever know the difference, but it'll definitely taste better. It's more creamy. It's not stringy. It's delicious. So this will be the first year that I'm going to try to grow this versus buying it. I will also be growing what's called squash mashed potatoes. I saw this online. It's a white winter squash, and it's supposed to taste like and have the consistency of mashed potatoes. So we'll give it a try. Those are the only two winter squash that I'll be growing. They take up so much space. So, you know, hopefully I could get something out of those two different types of winter squash. For summer squash, not a lot going on here. I'll be growing the traditional zucchini. I'll be growing both golden and the traditional green style zucchini. I'll be growing some yellow summer squash. Some people call it crookneck squash. And some of them are, crookneck. And then there's this prolific straightneck summer squash. And then I have a couple round zucchini style squash. I grew these last year. They actually roasted up better than traditional zucchini. They were great for fresh eating. And so we will grow these again this year. And then a white scallop. Some people call these scallops. Some people call them patty pans. Grew these last year as well. They did really well. So this will be my second year growing them. For cucumbers, I'm not going to go through all the different types of cucumbers I have. There are a few that I would like to mention though. When it comes to cucumbers, you have your regular cucumbers and you have what's called a hybrid. Your hybrid cucumbers are typically the ones that are burpless, and they're not true to themselves if you use their seeds typically. So I will be growing some hybrid cucumbers, as well as pickling cucumbers. This is just one name brand of the pickling cucumbers that I'll be growing. We love dill pickles and many different styles of pickles in the house. And so we do a lot of pickle canning. So you really need to be using pickling cucumbers for canning if you want them to have a chance of being crisp type of pickles. So many different types of pickling cucumbers. I have some fun cucumbers. I'm going to be growing the White Wonder from M.I. Gardner. This is a white cucumber. It's very sweet though, very sweet. The seed cavity, it's not that bad. The seeds are not really large, but this is a really good cucumber as well. And Suyo Long, I've been hearing great things about this one. I've never grown it before, but I've heard great things about it. So this will be an experiment for me this year. And then many different varieties of your typical slicers that you use in your salads. So lots of cucumbers next year. I should say this year, not next year. For cabbages, I will be doing traditional cabbage. Because our springs are so unpredictable, I can't go for a very long duration style cabbage. I've never had great luck with those. I always try though, and I'll try a few this year. So I'll be doing the early Jersey, which has done really well in my garden. I'll also be doing both the golden and red acre. And these have an 80-day or 75 to 80-day maturity. Wish me luck. I have never had great luck with those. I will be growing both bok choy and pak choy. Bok choy I just got from the local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, one of those. And then I also got some pak choy from Harris Seeds. So this is pak choy. And so These usually grow very well in my indoor garden as well as in my spring and fall garden. So these should do really well for me. And then the last thing that I will be growing is a Chinese cabbage. It's kind of like a Napa cabbage. Here's one of the brands that I'll be growing here, as well as Bilko, which is an F1 style cabbage as well. And this one is from Harris Seeds. Carrots is another vegetable that grows really well in the GreenStalk. I'll be growing the carrots in my winter indoor garden in a GreenStalk, as well as in my garden in the spring and in the fall. There are a few that I'll be growing this year. I will be growing the Korner, Dulcinea, or however you say that. Danvers, and the St. Valerie. There are many different herbs that I attempt to grow every year, and there are some that are more like my longtime favorites. I'm going to grow them year in and year out. With my herbs, I like to grow as many as possible, dehydrate as many as possible, so I have herbs, dried herbs to use all winter long versus buying the stuff that they have for you at the store. I know how it was grown. I know what types of chemicals have been put on them, if any at all, which typically I don't put any on. So it's just a healthier option if you can grow your own. I'll be growing chives, parsley, which is now my favorite herb of all times. I love parsley. Cumin for all of my dishes that needs the warmth added to it. So your spaghettis and chilies and things of that nature, I'll be using cumin in there. Sage, thyme, oregano, sweet marjoram. And I'm growing this and I have no idea how to even use this. I've never cooked with it, know nothing about it, but it looked good. So I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to do some experimenting with this one. Rosemary, dill for those dill pickles, basil, and of course, cilantro. You gotta have cilantro for all of that salsa that we're gonna be making as well. So there you have it. Those are my primary vegetables and herbs that I'll be growing this year. There are some one-offs that I will be trying to grow, like for example, broccoli and Brussels sprouts and eggplants and celery and some of those type things, watermelon and cantaloupe, which don't normally do very well for me. I haven't had great luck with those. But we'll give those a try. We'll play around with them. If they do well, you'll get to see them as well as we do garden updates. I am a new channel, but I'm not new to gardening. Friends and family have asked me to start documenting my journey. If you have found this helpful to you, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. I will share in future videos us starting our seeds, transplanting the seeds into the garden, as well as harvest. So stay along with us for the journey. Thanks. Bye-bye.